Welcome, everyone, to Two Middle-Aged Guys Trying to Work It All Out. I'm Chris, and I am not here with my good friend Dave. So you have to put up with just one middle-aged guy trying to work it all out. Dave had to have surgery recently, and he is recovering well, but unfortunately, he's going to miss an episode of Two Middle-Aged Guys. So we're launching something that we've been talking about for a while, and we'll see how it does, and that's TMAG Shorts. We're going to talk about a topic that's just going to be me discussing. Sometimes maybe it will just be Dave discussing, but it will be a shorter 10, 15, 20-minute episode where we just hit something that's maybe been on our minds but isn't something that's big enough to take up a full episode of TMAG. And today, since Dave's not here and it's our inaugural episode of TMAG Shorts, we're going to talk about something that Dave doesn't care one bit about, and that is Neon Genesis Evangelion. Sorry, couldn't resist. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. So even though Dave is not here to discuss this topic with me, his fingerprints are on this episode, and he is here with us in spirit because he issued a challenge to me. He said, if you're going to talk about Neon Genesis Evangelion, please spend 45 seconds at the start and summarize what Neon Genesis Evangelion is. Now, for any listeners that are familiar with Neon Genesis Evangelion, you know that that is quite a task that Dave has assigned to me. But I'm going to start the clock, and I'm going to give it my best shot. Here we go. Neon Genesis Evangelion is a mech anime on the surface. It's the story of 14-year-old kids who pilot giant robots for reasons. Giant monsters appear on Earth with the goal of starting the end of the world. Below the surface, Neon Genesis Evangelion is about one particular boy named Shinji, whose mother died and his father abandoned him. He's chosen to be one of the pilots because his dad that left happens to be the guy in charge of the organization that built the giant robots and is trying to save humanity, but not really. It's complicated. Ha! I did it! And in less than 45 seconds. Now, before I go any further, do not watch Neon Genesis Evangelion if you are sensitive to the use of Judeo-Christian imagery. In fact, the creators of Eva are on record saying that they used it for no other reason than they thought it looked cool, and had they known that Eva was going to be translated and sent to the US, they probably wouldn't have. So if the idea of seeing a giant kaiju monster nailed to a cross is off-putting, skip this one. But, as Freud famously said, sometimes a giant kaiju monster nailed to a cross is just a giant kaiju monster nailed to a cross. The religious references in Evangelion actually have a lot more to do with ancient Sumerian beliefs and the Kabbalah more than anything, but, and this may sound strange, the plot structure of Evangelion is probably its least important feature. Evangelion is an emotional and psychological experience. Now, my second warning to people if they think they might want to watch Evangelion. If watching entertainment that has deep roots in depression, anxiety, existential dread, parental abandonment, and other bad things isn't your cup of tea, Evangelion probably won't be either. And finally, a third warning, as if the first two were not enough. If coherent narrative and story closure is important to you, you may not want to watch Evangelion. What do I mean? Well, I'm a huge fan of material that challenges the viewer. I'm not a person who always needs everything wrapped up in a pretty bow at the end. Twin Peaks and The Prisoner are two of my favorite shows for a reason. They are challenging concepts that make you think not only how does plot point A connect to plot point B, but also, and arguably primarily, make you think about how this particular artistic expression relates to you. What are you as a viewer pulling from this experience? If that is the type of media you enjoy, then congratulations. I've got 26 episodes and 6 movies for you to get lost in. So this begs the question, why do I like Evangelion and what do I get out of it? I refer to Evangelion as an emotional and psychological experience. The creator, Hideaki Anno, has been very forthcoming about his struggles with depression and how those struggles inspired each character in Evangelion. This is apparent through watching, even without knowing Anno's history. Each character in Evangelion is a fascinating character arc. Anno was once asked by a child if he enjoys the anime he creates. His response was that he didn't like everything. When asked what he didn't like, he said, "The parts where I recognize myself." Oof. I love art that is bold. I love art that has passion behind it. I love art where you know that this was not something created by a focus group. Regardless of whether you like Neon Genesis Evangelion or not, you simply cannot deny that it is a work of great love and great pain from everyone who worked on it. And I think that makes it valid and valuable. The fact that the narrative also speaks to me is a plus. One of the root conceits of Evangelion is that we all have trials and that we all have to face them. There's a pivotal moment in the story where Shinji, the main character, has a choice to make. Pilot his Eva or don't. He chooses to pilot the Eva, which is something that has only caused him pain, distress, and heartache, but he does it anyway because it's what needs to be done. He looks outside of himself and does something to benefit everyone else. If that isn't a human story, I don't know what is. I feel like all of us metaphorically get up every morning and pilot our Evas. You're probably thinking, all right, Chris, we understand why you would like this show, but why did you make an episode about it? As we try to do on this podcast, I want to tie this back to something from my experiences and something that means a great deal to me. My son likes anime, and I introduced him to Neon Genesis Evangelion when I thought he was old enough. He liked it as well. Perhaps not as much as I do, but he liked it. In 2007, Anno released the first of the rebuild of Evangelion movies. This was to be a 4-film retelling of the story of Evangelion. The second film came out in 2009, the third in 2012. The final film did not come out until 2021. That's a 9-year gap. And the third film ends with our heroes literally walking into a desert. Anno has talked about the severe depression that he fell into after the third film, asking himself questions like, why did I start this process in the first place, and what story am I really trying to tell? When the film released in Japan, I made the comment that if I could afford it, I would travel to Japan just to watch this movie. Absurd, but believe me, if I had had the money, I would have. Such is my fandom of Evangelion. But then a strange thing happened. Amazon bought the rights to the US distribution and threw the movie on Prime, but I didn't watch it. I don't really know why. Time, responsibilities, I don't know. I wanted to see the movie. I'd been waiting nearly a decade to see the movie, but I didn't watch it. I thought that maybe I'd wait for the Blu-ray release. I'm not really sure how that made a difference, but that's what I was thinking. Recently, our little Alamo Drafthouse Theater in Springfield showed the fourth film, called Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, for one showing. One. I asked my son if he wanted to go, and I grabbed tickets. I didn't get to see the final Evangelion film in Japan, but the first time I watched it was on the big screen with my son in the seat next to me. We marveled at the film. How many times can you say that a movie that was delayed nearly 10 years is not only good, but blew away any and all expectations? I can't think of another example of that in the history of cinema. Anno wrapped up Evangelion in a profound way that, in my opinion, speaks to the human experience, and I got to see it with my son. I'm grateful for moments in life that come together like clockwork. If I had watched the movie streaming on Amazon, I would have enjoyed it. I could have still gone to see that one showing in our local theater. It still would have been a good time. But the way events played out, it became one of those moments that I will never forget and can go back to every time I watch the film. To my son, it may have just been another movie with Dad, but to me, it was more. I hope that you out there have similar moments in your life. Dave and I don't make this an overtly religious podcast, but we haven't shied away from our faith either. I think little moments like that are the equivalent of a wink from God, a nod to let us know that He's out there and that He knows us. While we wait for Dave to recover and come back for the next episode, take a moment and think about those times in your life. Share some with us if you feel so inclined, and you can do that at 2 middleageguys.com. Until next time.
Fly me to the